What's new in filmmaking technology this week? News, reviews, education, insights, opinions, and ideas from the CineD newsroom with Nino Leitner and Johnny Bahiri. This is Focus Check, the weekly Cinetech podcast.
Welcome to episode 12 of the CineD Focus Check podcast. This is Johnny Bahiri.
And this is Nino Leitner.
So I think I just decided that we have to say our full names if people don't know us.
Okay, full name.
So it's been a busy week.
First of all, how are you, Nino? Before we even jump into...
Small talk first. Let's not bore people. We're good, so that's fine. Let's jump into the new stuff. This has been, May traditionally is a very busy month. I think it's fair to say in general in the tech world.
May I correct and say it's actually very quiet in general, but very busy with introducing camera and lenses. And obviously Apple also jumped in with some announcements. So
what is quiet then?
I think news in general, if
really?
you look, I have a feeling. I could see we are both acting as editors-in-chief. I think we knew what is coming up.
You mean before?
Yeah, just before a few days, it kind of a fake relaxed.
Well, everybody came back from NAB. There was announcement around NAB, and then not much happened. The Apple event came, which saved us with a lot of news. And actually, for people who haven't seen it yet, because we released this after the last podcast where we actually talked about the Apple announcements, we released a video that I showed at the event, which we're going to put the link in the show notes. A little hands-on with a new Final Cut Pro 2 for iPad and the iPad Pro M4. But this week is busy with actual camera and lens announcements.
Almost an avalanche. It's crazy. So let's start with Fujifilm.
Yeah, so you're the Fujifilm man in the sense that that's your preferred camera of choice for many things. So I'm gonna.
That's
pick,
it. I'm gonna pick from ever.
I'm gonna. Well, everybody knows. So I'm gonna pick your brain about this. So Fujifilm announced the X-T50. Now, I'm familiar-ish with Fujifilm cameras, but I know they only do Super 35 or APS-C cameras and, of course, medium format. Large sensor in the video sense, but medium format for photographers. So they don't do full frame. There's a lot of APS-C cameras from Fujifilm. I lost the overview, to be honest. X-T50, so that sounds very similar to the X-T5.
So I think as a general rule of thumb, what you should remember is the X-T, and then if there's a single digit, it's a bit of a physically larger camera. And if there are two digits, what Fujifilm is trying to do is make a more compact body, have the same or similar features. In this regards, the X-T50, which we have right here, and I'm sorry guys.
It was just announced.
Yeah, we simply didn't manage to complete the review that will come next week. The X-T50 is a smaller, more compact version of the X-T5 camera. And I have to tell you...
What are the main features?
Okay, so 40 megapixels in such a small camera, 6.2 video.
6.2K.
6.2K resolution video.
Yeah.
This is internally up to 10-bit recording, 4:2. If you do it externally, then you get 12-bit.
Is that the same resolution as the X-T5?
Yeah, everything is here the same, but what is not the same, and of course you have the IBIS and so on, but what you have which is not the same, and I personally, I love this idea. I think this is such a clever idea. We all know and love the Fujifilm film simulations that they have, different ones. What Fujifilm did for the first time, they literally took out of the menu those film simulations and added a physical button here.
A wheel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now you can literally scroll, and so easy to see the different, how the film simulation is actually impacting the picture itself. I love it. I think
kind of do spontaneous changes of the film simulation shot by shot.
Absolutely. And that's for video, and it's for of course, for photos. I love the idea. Some people might not.
Well, for photos, I understand, because of course you can have a different look for every photo, but why would you change the look of each shot in a video.
No, you will not change each shot of the video, but I'm just saying that it's very easy to choose a simulation here, film simulation, and go with it. In general, one second. This is it's such a compact camera, and it's very stylish. For the first time, Fujifilm has an additional color. Up until now, it was black, and there was silver, and now there's like a darkish silver. Very, very nice.
It looks like this. What does Apple call the iPads? You know, the new iPads have this same color.
They have a name for it somewhere. There's an official name for this color. And the other thing is, I don't know if you can see, that's for the first time ever, they also changed the body to look even more stylish. Can you see what's happening here? There's like a rounded corners on top. I hope the audience can see this. And that, to my opinion, makes the camera very nice.
It goes a little bit away stylistically, goes a little bit away from this kind of vintage look, right? That they used to have like, I mean, a lot of the existing cameras actually look a little bit like vintage Fujifilm cameras, film cameras, and now it looks a bit more modern. I
would say it's becoming a vintage classic camera.
Something like
because
that. Because
for the vintage side or the more, we all like buttons or wheels here. You have plenty of those for control. And if you want, of course, a bit of a modern camera, you have the very nice design. The handling of the camera, at least to my small hands, is very easy. Unlike the X100S, which we just reviewed and that we published either in the weekend or early next week also, which was not so comfortable to hold, the one with the fixed 23mm fixed lens. This one is much easier
to hold.
Sure, please.
I guess my hand's a little bit too big for this.
But there's no one grip for all, but I think
it still feels nice. Yeah, it feels very classy. Like the material is very, very nice to the touch. Yeah, very nice.
So what I have to say, you don't feel like you're compromising here in terms of resolution and also recording formats. Of course, I mean it's a SD Type 2 cards, which means you can go up to 360 megabit per second when it comes to data rate, which is quite sufficient for what it is.
So that's the difference to the X-T5?
The only difference for the X-T5, 1 second, is literally the button is out here. I mean, it's smaller, and the dial that they moved out.
But internally, everything is the same.
It's the same. It's
codecs, everything.
Everything.
So why would I buy the more expensive X-T5 then?
That's a good question, and I've been asking myself.
Autofocus also the same?
Everything is the same. Everything is the same.
Interesting.
I can actually check. Give me 1 second. I'll put my non-stylish glasses. I want to check one detail. Oops. Today I'm so excited that I'm...
Well, it's something that we've been used to from Sony, to release a lot of different alpha models. And I always wonder, there seems to be a market for all of them. Otherwise, they wouldn't make them. But I also lost the overview with the Fujifilm cameras, to be honest.
Yeah. So the only thing that is different between the X-T5 and the X-T50 is the number of film simulations.
Okay.
You have 20 here. There's simply more film simulations in this camera.
And they look really nice. I mean, the Eterna we've had for many years, right? That's I'm actually moving away a little bit from the Eterna. I'm more and more trying this Reala Ace. I like the skin tones even better. And actually I'm very much considering, because I'm filming part of the review this weekend, if actually to shoot only in the Reala Ace, because of course as filmmakers we always want to do F2 and then grade later and so on. So we have this kind of urge to explore the maximum dynamic range and so on. But I think I'm very tempted to work with the Reala Ace. That's a very nice. I like the skin tones. I like the overall. It's a bit, for me personally, it's nicer than the. It's funny, I think these film simulations, and also, I mean, what Sony does with the S-Cinetone, of course, they have much less choice in terms of like making a nice, I mean, they have all the picture profiles, but really only the S-Cinetone has a great dynamic range and is still a look, like the other picture profiles are not that. And I think Fujifilm is making a bigger effort of actually building in a look that looks filmic and is not compromising too much on the dynamic range. But what I wanted to say is, like, in general, I think there's a general trend in filmmaking that we all shooters now prefer kind of the easy way to create a look, meaning we choose lenses that have an inherent look now. Like, you see the popularity of anamorphic lenses and also vintage looking lenses and stuff like that. And now also have a film look already from the camera. So it's kind of like, maybe it's because it gives us back control. It doesn't actually let the editing room, whoever that is, if it's not yourself, make stylistic decisions from a log image that you shot that might not be what you would have chosen. So I think it's great to have this ability again. Yeah.
Of course, there is no perfect camera. I just want to highlight two shortcomings very quickly, and I understand why Fujifilm made those decisions. One is there is a microphone jack, 3.5 jack, so this is standard and this is really, really great. But for monitoring the audio, you will need this USB-C to female 3.5 jack in order to connect your headphones. So this is a bit of a compromise. I guess it's a matter of space thing.
But you have to open this flap to plug it in? No.
What do you mean to open a plug?
See?
Yeah, it's like normal, like any other camera that we have, but that's not a 2.5 because...
No, I'm just surprised that the flap is that big. I mean, it kind of has to stay open when you have the headphones attached, which is... It looks like a flap that... on the other side, which actually where you have the
I'm trying to take everything into kind of consideration, and also
it only has one SD card slot.
That's right. So that's the same thing. That's the second thing. A single SD card and the older battery that Fujifilm is using, and of course that means that you'll get a shorter runtime of the camera.
But it's saving on space.
And not only that, this probably will not be our main filming camera, but it's very nice, very easy to handle. And you know what? They even included here the front tally. So they were thinking also about the video, which is very important.
I mean, if you think about it, you have 6.2K resolution, 4:2 10-bit in such a tiny body. That's amazing. It's something we could have even thought about a few years ago.
Yeah, so we all became very, very spoiled.
Oh,
that's one. And second, you know what? I will be more knowledgeable after working on the weekend, because that's going to be a long day and I will see overheating and all that stuff. But I think for what it is, it's quite nice, and it's also cheaper than the X-T5. And the body only will retail for $1,399.95. That's mean $1,400.
How much is the X-T5?
Wait, let's do quickly with B&H. I will check because I can't remember by heart. X-T5 is $1,700.
Well, wow.
So yeah, it's $300 difference. Yeah.
But in general, I mean that both of their cameras. I mean, the X-T5, which is the X-T5 is a flagship, right? In terms of APS-C camera that they have.
Well, no, I wouldn't say the whole XH2 and the XH2S. Those are the flagship in a way, and they are of course more targeted to filmmakers. Yeah. And the X-T5 is more of a as we say, classic external dials and buttons, and maybe aimed a bit more for photographers, but of course you can take nice videos, and we can see that just shrank in space and became more compact and cheaper.
I'm just surprised that all these manufacturers make more and more models where the long-term trend is, of course, that the camera market is shrinking. And however, I saw the Sony results for 23, and they have sold significantly more cameras.
Yeah.
I think 20 or 30% more.
So we're almost asking who is buying, because we keep saying how difficult it is.
Yeah,
for
after
everybody.
a long-term trend of kind of downward trend, it seems to be picking up again, which is interesting. Maybe because they finally are all embracing seriously the connectivity to smartphones better. I think all of the manufacturers are trying hard to make it easier to transfer those photos to other devices in general.
Yeah.
So that's nice. Yeah.
Okay. Before moving to the next camera, just another quick note. in the old models of Fujifilm cameras, you needed an external grip in order to connect to Frame.io. This is not the case.
The wireless.
That's right. That's
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but there was always an external grip. Yeah, and this is not the case anymore.
But it's general Wi-Fi. It's not just Frame.io. I mean, it's just Wi-Fi connectivity, I guess.
Yeah, but of course we are highlighting now to camera to cloud work with Frame.io, and you don't need the grip anymore in this camera. Fujifilm moved away from this grip in general via firmware update for some of their cameras already. But this one you can see, so you don't need to invest the extra.
What do you
money.
mean? They did a firmware update to all the cameras that you don't need
Most
a grip anymore?
That's right. I mean, the only thing it might be a little bit slower.
The hardware was already in there to do Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but there's still some limitations, maybe in terms of speed, let's say. But all in all, now it's possible to do it with most of their cameras. So let's move to the second camera. And the second camera is the FUJIFILM GFX100S II. This is a medium or large format sensor camera. And again, I have to say that Fujifilm did a really nice job here. Of course, the last model that we reviewed was the GFX100 II. And that model is kind of the top of the line of the GFX cameras. This one, I think what they try to emphasize is the size of the camera. It really, and also the weight, it's even smaller. It's almost 900 grams. And again, of course, what they did here in order not to, I guess, cannibalize the higher end model, there is no 6K and there is no 8K like in the GFX 100 II. So here you are restricted up to 4K recording. Also internally, and by the way, there are only 2 slots of SD cards in this camera, but you can also connect an external recorder. Sorry, of course you can, but you can also connect SSD to the USB-C and then record ProRes.
Okay.
So internally there is no ProRes, only H.264, H.265. Different flavors of data rates and so on.
But you don't actually need a dedicated external recorder to record ProRes. You can just use an SSD. That's
right. But if you want raw recording, then of course through the HDMI, you can connect Atomos or any other recorder that you want for Blackmagic Design or ProRes RAW. Yeah, so this is again, you can see clearly that they are attempting to lower the price. This camera, the new one, the GFX100S II, will retail for around $4,995, almost $5,000, and much smaller, lighter. So, and it will have a nice solutions for photographers and filmmakers. Yeah,
and I just read the processor, the new processor actually allows for lower noise in general.
That's what they claim, of course, and we will have to test this. I mean, also in like the F-Log2 ISO, the base ISO is 800, but if you're using any of the other film simulations, you can go as low as 100 ISO, which is quite nice for video. For photos, even 80. So yeah, I mean, we will at some point. I'm making noise here. Yeah, at some point I will. We will test the camera, and also put it in our lab test. Just it will be interesting to see how it does there.
So the S, like the GFX 100 versus S in general, it's the size difference, right?
Not only the size, also resolution, because the GFX 100 II can go all the way up to 8K recording. And if you remember, it also has some anamorphic discrete built in already. And there's a 6K mode. I mean, there's so much more.
But there was some limitation, I remember, in terms of like using the full sensor width for video, right?
Yeah, in some modes, there is a crop modes, like for example in when you shoot anamorphic. But yeah, so the new one, the smaller model is just lighter in the body, and you don't get all those crazy resolutions. And also in the GFX 100 II, you can record internal ProRes, which here you can't, only via SSD.
And this camera is around $5,000?
That's right.
Okay.
Just shy.
Yeah. Good.
Good. And then, of course, if you make cameras like this, you also need lenses. So let's quickly talk about the new GF500, 1 second, millimeter lens. Where is that?
One, yeah. So that's a lens for the GFX, of course.
Sorry?
That's for the GFX.
That's right. It's for the GFX. And
a prime lens, 500mm. Wow.
Yeah, that's right. And when I first saw and touched it a few months ago, I was shocked how lightweight the lens is. It felt like I was asking the person who actually demoed the lens if there's anything inside. That's how it felt. It's so lightweight, very impressive. And this lens also has a built-in optical image stabilization.
Well, you kind of need this with 500mm. I mean, the 500mm on a sensor this big, if you use a full sensor width, I think it's 1.7 times bigger than a Super 35 sensor, right? So it's more like, it's probably like a 250mm lens.
360, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
This, 396.
On a full frame.
Yeah, that's right, 396.
Okay.
But still, it's a very nice lens. At least the handling of it. Yeah, we haven't shot with that yet, but yeah, I think it's a nice addition for those who are doing sport and
wildlife.
Nature. Exactly, nature photography and filming, and it's also weather resistant. They're really emphasizing. And it's quite interesting. Of course, if you're out and about and you're shooting some wildlife, you would like to have such a lens.
I'm very curious about the depth of field you can get with this, because this sensor combined with a telephoto lens, it must be insane. I mean, you can completely isolate everything. Well, basically.
You can almost isolate your nose from your eye. That's the problem. So you really have to be careful also.
Even if something is 300 meters away. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And this lens will be sold for $3,500.
And then last but not least, we have a lens also for the X line, the X cameras.
That's right. And you know what? I'm so eager. Actually, we have the lens here. 1 second. Why am I?
That's a very tiny lens.
Yeah.
The 1650.
This is the 16 to 50 millimeter lens. It's the new lens. Everything is happening internally, which is really nice, like the internal zoom and focus.
It's not protruding? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you can really see here.
It's a good fit, of course, for this camera to stay small.
Absolutely. And again, I probably will work with this one in the weekend just to feel how it is. The only downside for that lens is it started f2.8 on the wider side, on the 16 millimeter, but as you just move it a little bit to the 16 and a half, and that's already becoming less. It's not so fast then. Yeah, it goes all the way to 4.8. Yeah, but again, you can't have it all.
It's a tiny package. It's probably like if you run with this camera, like for street photography, filmmaking, easy stuff. Of course, it's a good fit, but as a compromise.
Yeah, but because this lens is being announced with the camera, and the camera is 40 megapixels. I can only assume that Fujifilm worked hard in order to have a very high quality lens. Yeah, and sometimes it's a bit misleading when we're using the word kit lens. You somehow think that a kit lens is always inferior in quality. I'm very curious to see what it means. We will run this also in our charts and see how it keeps sharpness on the edges and so on. Yeah. So this is for any.
Does it have a stabilization?
No.
Okay.
That's one limitation that it has. It doesn't have stabilization. And that will be sold for $700 separately, unless you buy it with the X-T50 or T5 or XS20. Then I think it becomes like so much cheaper. Then it becomes like, I don't know, $200 or $300 if you buy it as a kit with so we will test it soon. And all I can suggest, if you guys are thinking to like buying the camera or buying the lens, just look at the combination. Maybe just you will save some money if you buy those together. But again, quite impressive. And it's a very, I think it's a fundamental thing for Fujifilm. 4 announcements in one day. It's impressive, we have to admit.
Yeah, and it's just great. I mean, the general miniaturization of gear is just constantly advancing, and we see like the amount of quality you can get in these cameras now, and both of those cameras prove how small it can get, even with a large sensor and also with a smaller sensor, of course.
Sometimes I feel that those companies are working for me, but that's just a joke. But not a joke, I'll tell you something. When you go to a set to shoot something, I know that some of our colleagues are very much concerned to come to the set with something like this. Why? Because your neighbor might have the same camera. So part of the justification is to work with bigger tools. I'm not saying that the bigger tools are not more capable, but in general, some professionals will actually be very much concerned to come to a set with something like this. And I always have to remind people, when a client is paying, he's paying for your experience and for your composition and for your knowledge. And the client has to trust you. And if you decide to come to a set with something like this, don't be shy. That might be the right tool for a specific job. Not always bigger is better.
Well, I think those things are slowly changing also, because even on the high end, we see cameras getting smaller. Like our high-end cinema cameras are getting smaller. And, thanks to Red and also RE, even they are coming. It's just shrinking. Yeah. And they're still much bigger, of course. But I think it's not like it was 10 years ago where you literally, the cameras were just, the differences were significant. And now even the clients might know that a small camera doesn't mean it's inferior quality anymore. And also, do you remember those days?
After FX3, all of those cameras are obviously small, but they're very capable.
But do you remember the days when we showed up with DSLR cameras for video shoots and people started freezing in front of your camera because they thought you'd take a photo? Those days are over. I haven't seen this in many years. So, even the average public now knows that you can get decent video quality. So this is changing. But yeah, it just reminded me, by the way, about the video that we did at at NAB about the old fast glass Customs 65 cinema camera, which is built on the GFX100 II sensor. So these guys who made actually a cinema camera housing for the GFX100 II, and you did an interview there. So that if you haven't seen that, it's very worth watching, of course. And this is, of course, essentially filmmakers who made this because they probably thought, I don't have all the buttons and switches that I need on that camera. And this was done with support by Fujifilm, right?
Well, support meaning it's not that Fujifilm...
But it didn't prevent it.
No, exactly. Yeah. They did not. And they also, actually, they were exhibiting this prototype in the Fujifilm booth at NAB. So that was very nice to see. Personally, this is a rental item mostly. And personally, I think both of us are still waiting for Fujifilm to hopefully come with their own thing, their own thing, cinema camera. Who knows?
But it's cool. That somebody is making this, and it really looks like an actual product. That's the funny thing. Yeah. Okay.
Good, but
so
that's
we put
not the
a
only
link to all of those announcements in the show notes, of course, if you want to learn more, and also to the OFG Customs 65 video that we did at NAB. Yeah. So.
Good. But Nino, that's not the only announcement today. What else?
There's another announcement. By the time you hear this podcast, the article will also be live on the site and the link will be in the show notes. Sigma announced an update to their extremely popular Sigma Art 24-70 F2.8 DGN art lens. And I have to say,
this is the old one.
This is the old one, yeah. And we have this here. And honestly, this has been my main lens for the last, I would say, 3-4 years. This lens is an absolute beast. Why
do you love it? Why do you love it so much?
Well, I prefer it over the G Masters, also the latest G Master, which is of course much lighter, the 24-70. It's a 2.8 lens, but I have never seen a standard zoom that is kind of like my go anywhere zoom. That if I have to choose one lens, this is the lens that I choose. It's always like this. And literally, I had shooting days for documentary where I didn't use anything else many times. It's definitely already the old version is something that it doesn't look like a zoom lens, right? Like every focal length looks like a prime lens. It has absolutely, those typical things that you sometimes you have a focal length of a zoom lens where you say, well, you can see that it's a zoom lens. You know what I mean? Like the distortion sometimes on the wide end is very
sharp
bad,
and so on.
Or the sharpness. We've seen this with many lenses in the past, but not so much this one. Now, this version here that I prefer to use, when I shoot on a Sony camera, I still use the EF version with the Sigma adapter, simply because the versatility, because then I can still use the EF. You can adapt EF to practically anything. And I bought the adapter because the autofocus works if you use their adapter, not if you use a Metabones, but if you use the Sigma adapter with the Sigma art lenses, you can literally use the autofocus as if it was a native E-mount lens. Okay. I have never really compared side by side, but the autofocus is so good that I'm not missing the E-mount version. Now, and the EF version of this lens still gives the versatility to put it on other cameras, Canon cameras, but also Red, whatever, which is, of course, not the case if you have the E-mount version. Now, the E-mount version of the predecessor also, of course, is lighter than this. The new version that they just announced, which is exciting, is 10% lighter. It's a heavy lens. I mean, the original one is like something like 830 grams. It has a lot of glass inside, very little chromatic aberration, very little focus breathing. But they still managed to make the new one smaller, 10%. And I think the volume is 7% less. Okay. They also managed to remove, there's a protruding element on the side, which is the switch from autofocus to manual, and also the on-off switch for the stabilization of the lens, which is, by the way, very, very good also for video. So this is not protruding anymore on the new version. And I think they added a aperture ring, which is great. So, I guess Sigma says, and of course we haven't tested it, but I believe them, they have not compromised on the glass quality. They even put in more, so they apparently have a more refined production process for aspherical lens elements. And we really know, Sigma is really about optical perfection. In a way they are kind of like Zeiss, right? They are both not so much into creating a look with their lenses, but really optically perfect lenses with no distortions. For example, I could never see anamorphic lens from them. Maybe in the future, but it's not something that I would expect, because they're more like about creating perfect lenses. And so the first version has 3 aspherical elements, and those aspherical elements, as we know, are very important to create a perfect image and create very little aberration and all those things. Now they have 5 aspherical elements in there. Sigma says it's the highest amount of aspherical elements in any 24-70 in the market from any manufacturer. The chromatic aberration is even less. They say is a higher resolution, which is interesting to me. I'm very looking forward to our test of that lens, because I didn't see any faults with the predecessor. It's like literally, it's not that I've never, used it side by side. The new G Master is also great. The G Master 24-70. I just like the handling of the Sigma more. It's heavier, but it feels like something that is lasting longer, to be honest. And just the focusing barrel is always a big thing for me. It's very easy to focus manually with this lens, and I hope this will still be the case with the new one. We know all those lenses are, primarily made for photography, which means if you do manual focusing, there is always a very small amount of movement that you need from macro to infinity. I feel that movement is more with the Sigma than it is with the Sony lenses. For me, it's harder to focus with a G Master's 24-70. It doesn't matter which version of that lens than it is with the Sigma Art 24-70. And I'm looking forward to trying this on a new one too. They enhanced something a little bit. I think on the wide end, the minimum focus distance on the original was already very good. It was 37 centimeters, or 38 actually, and now it's 34. It's not a big difference, but it is better. And to get those really nice macro wide close-up shots is amazing.
Nino, from the photos that we have of that lens, it looks as if there is no more stabilization like OIS built into this lens.
Interestingly, we couldn't find anything about this in the press release, so it's not mentioned. So I guess it's really not there anymore. So I guess that's one of the ways they saved on the weight and size of the lens as well. I mean, yes, it kind of. I mean, the original one has very, very good image stabilization. So I hope they keep this in the market, because if you have a camera that doesn't have IBIS, you would still want to have this one, and it's a great lens. I mean, I have no doubt that this will continue to sell well. However, if you do have a camera with IBIS, you might not need this, and then having a smaller, lighter lens makes sense.
So you got the aperture ring, which is not here, but the downside is the IBIS.
You lost the OS.
The OIS,
in lens stabilization. Yeah, interesting. I mean. I don't know why. I mean, also there's another big difference. Of course, there is no EF version of this lens anymore. They are only releasing this for mirrorless cameras, and specifically only for E and L mount. I hope there will be an RF mount version at some point. We know that Canon now seems to be more open about other manufacturers releasing cameras for RF mount. And I think has Sigma announced anything?
Yeah.
Okay, so they have announced some RF lenses. So I hope they will also do this lens, because I mean it might be able to give other 2470 lenses a run for the money. Mm-hmm. It's just simply, I mean, Yamaki-san personally much better than I do, but I just love the ethics of this company to really always strive for the best. And if you think about where they have been coming from over the last 20 years. Where like first time I heard Sigma when I was young, that was it was a small, it's kind of like you didn't think about them, about a lens company being in really the prime league of lenses, and now they absolutely are.
Good.
So okay. That's anything else to say about this? I mean, it's. Do
you know the price already, or only the price in Japanese yen? No,
not really announced. I mean, as you might know, as soon as you read the article, we'll put the link in the show notes. Okay. But at this point in time, we don't know. It's just mentioned that it's a little bit more expensive than the predecessor, so we know that. But the difference won't be big. But the predecessor, I think, was something like $900 or $1,000. So that's amazing for this kind of lens. I can be wrong, but that's what I have in mind. But very excited about this, because it's really, I know there's a lot of filmmakers and photographers that it's almost like a secret. When I started using this and kind of ditched any other 2470 on documentary shoots, it feels like cheating, because your shots just started to look so much better. And that's how I feel about this lens, and I can only recommend people using it. They, by the way, also now, I mean, autofocus is very good on this. They replaced the step autofocus motor with a linear motor. Autofocus was already good on this one, and they said in the presentation that you might actually not see so much more difference with a linear one in video, but for photographers it makes a lot of sense. It's much faster now, but it was already great on the old one. So, but not having a step motor anymore, one thing I noticed sometimes when using this, it's not that it's noisy, but it makes some noise. So I hope that the linear motor is quieter. That's one thing. Like I also use this on a gimbal. And you could feel those movements sometimes. It's not big or disturbing in any way, but of course it's nice if they're not there anymore. Yeah.
Okay. What else happened this week, or caught our attention?
What else happened this week? Well, we have to talk about AI.
Yeah, so the favorite topic.
Let's try something. So first of all, I'm gonna start the ChatGPT app on the iPhone, and that's not really related to filmmaking, but I'm just gonna try something. Wait a second. So give me a second. What's CineD's latest lab test?
Thinking.
It's doing something.
The latest lab test from CineD covers the Sony Burano 8K camera. This test includes detailed analysis on its rolling shutter performance, dynamic range, and exposure latitude. The Burano 8K is noted for its strong dynamic range and innovative features that cater to high-end cinematic production needs.
Wow. Okay, so let's try something else. I have a friend here who only talks English, and I only speak German. Can you translate anything that he says into German and anything that I say into English?
Sure, I'd be happy to help with that. Just let me know what each of you says and I'll translate it accordingly.
Hallo Johnny, es ist schön, dich hier im Podcast-Studio zu treffen. Wie geht es dir heute?
Hi Johnny, it's nice to meet you here in the podcast studio. How are you today?
Hi Nino, I'm fine. How are you? It's really great to be here in the podcast, and hopefully now I will hear myself in German.
Mir geht's gut. Wie geht's dir? Es ist wirklich toll, hier im Podcast zu sein und hoffentlich höre ich mich jetzt auf Deutsch.
Wow, so this is ChatGPT 4.0. I don't know what the O stands for. They just announced this a couple days ago. It's crazy. I mean, first of all, what I tried first is to ask it a question which is, you know, like surfing the internet. I mean, you can talk to it now, and it's much faster replying.
Because about current things. I mean, that's not anymore like things from 2 or 3 years ago. It's really happening now.
It's really now. I don't know how current it is. I mean, we could try even asking it about something that we released today on CineD. I haven't tried that yet. But it's amazing that it can just literally surf the internet and also you just talk to it. And I think it was possible before to send a voice message, but then it would transcribe it and then the reply would also come out in text and then read it. And somehow they changed this, so it's now much faster. This really feels like, you know, the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, where he falls in love with the computer voice. This is like you can have normal conversations with this.
I can see myself doing reviews soon in just another language. It will be a piece of cake, no?
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, this is not replacing your voice. But what it is doing is even when you do the translation thing, I mean, it's going to make things so much easier. If you travel to Japan, for example, they don't speak English very often, so you can just actually talk to it in English or whatever language, and then it would translate into Japanese. And it actually manages to get the emotions in there. That's the crazy thing. I mean, we had translating, you know, the possibility to translate stuff was there with other services before, but the level of accuracy, but also the level of actually transcending kind of that emotion, the hesitation, all of that into the translation, that's amazing. And then I've tried it with my wife in Dutch as well, because she speaks Dutch as well, and we tried it in different languages, and apparently this works with 100 languages, and that's 97% of the world population. That's amazing.
So although it's not related 100% to filmmaking, it's about the direction that the whole thing is going to, and obviously we can't stop it. But
the level of advancement is just amazing. Like if you think about where we were a year ago with this stuff, and now is this, yeah.
But there is also a very specific announcement that is related to our industry.
Yeah. So, OpenAI announced this literally one day before the Google I/O conference, which happens once a year, which is their big, I think, developers conference, and Google announced a lot of new things. They announced something similar, you know, like AI. You can talk to the Gemini thing, and you know, which is their competitor to ChatGPT and so on. But they also announced a video generating model called Veo, and of course, this competes with Sora, like we reported about before. For those people who have missed it, Sora is a video generating model by OpenAI, which so far is not open to the public yet. But there are a lot of creatives that had access to it before. And like with DALL-E or Midjourney, you can write text prompts for it to generate video clips. There was even music videos that were released that were completely, like generated with Sora, but again, not open to the public yet. Now, of course, Google, big competitor here in the AI space, they've been doing a lot of research for a lot of years also, and went out with this stuff after kind of OpenAI forced them to, I think, with ChatGPT, and they're making big advancements with every announcement too. And now they announced Veo, which is the same kind of direction as Sora, and it is a video generator. And they released same thing. It's not open to the public yet. There is a beta. We can sign up for a waiting list. We'll put the link in the show notes to the article, which at the bottom also has a link to the sign up for the waiting list. But they released a couple of videos. We see here a cowboy on a horse, which, it's a very short video. It says you can generate videos of up to 1080p, up to 1 minute long. This, seriously, if I would see this clip, I would not be able to say that it is something that was not actually shot. It's impressive. I mean, the horse has 4 legs. The guy has 2 hands, which is something we didn't see with the early models. We see a time lapse of a starry sky, Milky Way stuff with, like a snowy foreground. We have a kind of drone shot of the beach, something very similar to actually what OpenAI showed with the Sora demo. And then the same shot with some kayaks in the water. Looks absolutely like something that was shot with a drone. So it's just crazy.
Do you know how much power or computer power, how long does it take to generate those images? We don't really know.
They are not telling anybody yet. And we just know they are pouring like the biggest CapEx, like capital expenditures that all of those big companies make right now is into building data centers. And you see it with any company that is working on anything that has anything to do with a data warehouse. They are reporting record profits and revenue simply because all the big ones are investing billions and billions into building new data centers. So I think that's probably the reason why none of these video generating models has been released to the public, because of course you will need a lot of processing power compared to an image generator to do these 24 frames or whatever, 30 frames per second for a lot of people. So we don't know. We don't know how much, we don't know how long it takes. Somebody said that the Sora is really slow still. I guess because they still have to run it on their existing infrastructure. So it takes up to an hour or something to generate the clips, I heard. But that's hearsay. But it's something that sounds believable. And I'm sure that, it will take some time, but we know how these things, Moore's law, how it moves, and, NVIDIA chips are getting faster. The competition is not sleeping either. And it's just insane where things are moving. Google also did announce, it's kind of like a appeasement policy, I guess, but at the same time, they announced something which is allowing you to watermark, like invisibly watermark AI-generated images and videos. Now, of course, they even say it's like something they recommend to use. I think it's just something that should be enforced into all of those models to be able to identify them, because we're already reaching a level of accuracy. We've talked about this before, but the likelihood of people misusing this and generating stuff that is just pretending to be real and it's not is very real.
Before we move forward, where is Apple in all of that?
Where's Apple in all of it? Well, we don't know. Apple is the Worldwide Developers Conference is happening in 3 weeks. That's their annual big conference with 6,000 attendees from all over the world, where they traditionally announce software updates to their operating systems. And we've seen with the Apple event in last week with the iPad Pro, they already suddenly mentioning the word AI a lot more than they ever used to. So they're completely aware that they're they are perceived as being a little bit behind about the whole subject. But they are, you can already see teasers of, they're taking this seriously. So what everybody's kind of expecting for the WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference, is that they will announce a lot of AI functions in their new versions. Now, if you look at Siri now, their voice assistant, it seems
that will get an assistant.
It seems like, almost like ancient times if you compare it to this ChatGPT that you can talk to. And there's people think that they might enter a licensing agreement with OpenAI or Google to implement one of their assistants, and I guess there will be a similar agreement that we will never know about for sure. But apparently, allegedly, Google pays a lot of money, tens of billions every year to Apple in order to be the preferred search engine on any of their devices. So I guess there will be a similar deal if it doesn't get blocked by cartel. Institutions, whatever, regulators to implement one of those things. It's just about time. And we'll see how this, in general, this technology will move into operating systems because, one other thing that they showed with ChatGPT is just that's also, I think, not open for public or everybody yet. You can also film stuff. Like I can take a photo and just upload it and ask it, what is this? Or what, yesterday I took a photo of the map in my office. There's a big map on the wall, a world map. And I just asked it, I took a photo of Europe and I asked it, it's a bit outdated, the map, right? And I asked it, what's wrong with this map? And it gave me a bullet list of the inaccuracies because some of the smaller countries and islands were not labeled. So it told me, well, Cyprus is not labeled and this island is not labeled, and of course there is it's the situation, like the status of Crimea Peninsula is since whatever, it's not all those things, and it's like crazy. It can also solve mathematical problems. So I think homework for kids and
I hope no kids are watching.
Is
but
done.
If you're a parent and you're watching,
you can take a photo of a hand-drawn assignment and just ask it to solve it and even show you how to solve it. It's insane. It's like it's absolutely mind-boggling. But I can see this stuff also moving into operating systems where the AI will be able to look at your screen and interpret what it's seeing, and we already have this with OpenAI. And I think a lot of developers are already using this. So they're showing it code and then just fix the code or, stuff like that. It's absolutely mind-boggling where things are headed.
Good. Next.
Yeah. Next topic, Fylm.ai. Now, Fylm.ai is a service that we've been using for many years. I think you've been using it a lot over the last few years. It is a service that allows you to generate basically LUTs in online. So you upload a still
or video,
from your footage, and then you can do a lot of modifications to the image in a very intuitive way without being a colorist. And then at the end, it can basically spit out a LUT that you download and then you put into your NLE of choice.
Yeah, and this is the essence of the whole thing, because I'm not a colorist. I guess you are not. And I was always struggling. Although it's very interesting. Sometimes you show a clip and you colored it and people go, wow, that's amazing. And others will go like, what's happened? Why is it too green or whatever? But we are not a colorist, and we always struggled how to color correct or have a look when we're doing a review or whatever. And Fylm.ai was really a lifesaver, up to the point that we even started to cooperate with the company, and we have our own LUT builder in our site. If you take a look at the upper part of our site, you will see that there's a LUT builder, and you can experiment and play a little bit with this. Up to a certain point, it's free, and then you will have to register with Fylm.ai. But what I want to say that it's very easy. You literally take a stills from your NLE, from the project you are editing, bring it to to Fylm.ai. It's always in the cloud, meaning it's always updated, and then you just select the camera that you took, or the picture profile, let's say F-Log2, for example, if I'm working with Fujifilm, and then the output, meaning if I'm working on RGB like 7 or 9, or depending on the monitor that you're going to watch the end result. And then you simply, from that point on, you can change almost every parameter that you want, exposure, white balance, contrast, and so on. But you can also use presets that the program or the software is actually recommending you.
What I always liked about it is you get these previews, like before it's not just color wheels, but it's basically you already have you get your still or video and get a preview of what it will look like once I apply a modification. So it's it's
very intuitive, very, very nice.
Dummy way of grading.
Absolutely. So you can really take it, you can expand almost every category and do much more professional work. But if you want something to work with, for me and as a non-colorist, I think it was a lifesaver. And now there's a new version of this app, 2.0. I have to say, I just started to play with this. It's a little bit hard for me to find my hands and legs in the new layout, because it's really that's kind of redoing the whole thing, the whole interface. And we all know how much we love changes, but still the results are very impressive. I just need to get myself to be more familiar with it.
Well, I like that they revamped it, because I thought some of the icons were very small and sometimes not easily. It was easy to miss in the original version, and I think I also have to still dive into this. But at first glance, it seems like they've worked on enhancing the whole workflow, because in the past they added functions, and as always, when you add functions, probably they didn't know where to put them, so they probably rethought the entire process entirely. And at first glance, for people who are watching the video version of this podcast, they can see the demo video that they did for the version 2.0 that was just released. It at first glance seems a lot more intuitive and more attuned to a desktop app. What's amazing in general for me, that all of this runs in a browser. It's even possible to do this. And the styles and film simulation always looked very convincing. And for anybody who's seen, I guess, most of our reviews over the last couple of years, they will have seen what Fylm.ai is capable of, because, like you said, we've not really worked with professional colorists for 99% of those videos, but those are mostly LUTs that were created in Fylm.ai and applied to the footage.
Yeah, that's the fun. If you give the project away, maybe it will look even shinier, nicer, and so on. But when you film something and when you edit it, you also want to color grade it and you want to have the control, and it's just a lot of fun to play with. So,
and an intuitive way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's great for us visual people to, not having to understand each wheel and setting, and just you were able to play with it, and you get those choices, and then you can just go step by step, and at the end you have a very usable result. Yeah.
So Fylm.ai is the software, and
we have a if you access this from CineD, you can also use the free LUTs builder, which is based on, it is Fylm.ai. It's a reduced version of Fylm.ai. Once you go a bit further, you can upgrade to the full version, and we of course will appreciate if people do that through the website. There's an affiliate connection to them. We like the guys who are making this, and I think they're doing a really, really good job. So check out Fylm.ai 2.0
or LUT Builder and in
or
CineD.
LUT Builder in CineD for free. Yeah, good. So I think one last thing we can mention. We released a nice article from our dear writer Masha about sonic synergy. She wrote a very nice educational article on blurring the lines between music and sound design in filmmaking. And she had some very impressive examples from Dune 2, and also some other movies like Arrival and so on, Chernobyl. And it's going really into detail of where the lines between music and sound design blur and where they support each other. It's also all referring to our MZ course Cinema Sound, which is the most extensive course we have on the platform. It's 86 hours long, absolute insanity. And Mark Edward Lewis, who made that course, goes into the craziest amount of detail in terms of how to create proper sound for film. And you don't have to watch all of it, but you can watch individual lessons that deal with different stuff and different aspects of cinema sound. But it's mind-bogglingly detailed. And yeah, the aspect of, like we're cinematographers, we're camera people, but we all know the importance of the audio level in general, the sound level on the sound on videos and moving images.
Everything that you shoot.
It just lifts everything 300% if you do this properly. And if you're not aware of this, watch any movie mute. That's the recommendation I can make. It's like, watch your favorite movie without any sound, and then you will be able to see first of all, it'd be much easier to actually see the cinematography if you don't hear anything, because you're constantly kind of manipulated by music and sound effects. And if you don't hear this, you also understand, like on a proper production, how much of that is actually added with sound design specifically is so important. And it's something that's, of course, completely neglected on smaller productions, because usually there's no time or budget for proper sound design, but it's so important. And I think the ones that get this right just manage to produce content that is a million times better. And then if you can kind of combine that with the music, even better. Good.
Okay. That was fun. A lot of new equipment.
A lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
And a busy week in May.
Absolutely. And we will have so many reviews, product reviews coming up. So please stay tuned. There will be a tripod that you are reviewing, 2 cameras, and a
lot of
the
stuff.
new Blackmagic control panel.
Yes, exactly. Alex here behind the scenes, he reviewed the new Blackmagic. What is it called? Micro control panel?
Micro color panel,
which is much smaller. He did a very nice comparison to the predecessor, and it's a short little first look hands-on review, which we're going to release soon. And
there's a
lot of stuff coming.
Okay, good.
All right. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube, because of course all those videos will show up there. Also, Focus Check, our podcast, is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other podcasting platforms. Please subscribe there. Please give us a good rating. We would like to reach a bigger audience with this than already. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, guys.
See you and hear you next week.
Yeah. Ciao.